if the expectation that we have for ourselves is that we're going to maintain our typical routine at home when we're on the road, you're likely to feel what you were saying of stressed and frustrated,
right.
Which is the point of this episode, is to say the plan we have when we're home is not the same plan that works on the road. It's about what are the adjustments that we make, and then therefore, like I said in the beginning, what are the non-negotiables? Welcome to Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm your host, Jenn Trepeck, talking wellness and weight loss for real life. We're here to clear up the myths, misinformation, bad science, and marketing to teach you how to eat and how to cheat. Are you ready? I'm having salad with a side of fries. Hey friend, welcome back to another episode of Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm Jenn Trepeck, your host and health coach, here with you every week for Wellness Without the Weirdness. Back with us today is Deanna. Dee, how have you been?
I've been good. I've been jet setting around, Jen.
Which is perfect for today's conversation. We do have some new listeners though, so I want to fill everybody in. So Dee and I met through this podcast. She listened to the show, then became a member, then partnered with my team and I, and we helped her become a health coach and pay it forward and help more people. And Dee is also a member of the Healthy Vibe Tribe. So all the things together, Dee.
All the things, always learning.
Right? Yes, exactly. We are both insatiable students, which is definitely why we get along. So awesome. And today, as you mentioned, you've been jet setting. Today is all about health on the road, or living our healthiest lives, or a version of our healthiest lives while traveling. You know, it's summer. I feel like, you know, many of us are traveling. Dee, you, I know, just returned from some fabulous places. Tell everybody where you've been.
Yes, I was in Paris for about 3 days, and then I went on to a very small village in Sicily. Strangely enough, that's where part of where The Godfather was recorded.
How fun.
Yeah.
I love Italy. Oh, I know. I want to go. Let's see, where am I headed? So in a couple days, I'm headed to LA. And then the end of July, I'm going to Turks and Caicos. And in August, I have conferences, one in Greensboro, North Carolina, and the other in Dallas, Texas. So, you know, all the different kinds of travel, you know, fun, friends, and business, all the things. And so really what this is about, and the question that I'm posing to everybody is, what does your health plan look like when you're not at home? When you're not in your usual environment or your routine? What's the plan you create for yourself? And we're going to walk through this, and maybe I'm sort of, you know, jumping, you know, spoiler right at the top. But what this reveals about us is what we call our non-negotiables. What are the things that truly are part of who we are and not up for debate? Now, I want to make sure everybody hears me when I say this, because non-negotiables and not up for debate does not mean that we're rigid. It does not mean that we're not flexible. What I am saying is our non-negotiables. So we'll dig deeper into what that means. Before we get too far in, let's tell our members what they're getting this week. So members, well, let me preface this. There are changes coming very soon to the membership. So we have a new platform, a slightly different offering. I'm very excited about this. It is in the works, and I'll do a separate little bonus episode to fill everybody in. But what you might want to do is jump in now before the changes happen so that you get some benefits to all of that. So Dee, you're a member, and I think you're going to like these updates. I'm just saying.
I'm super excited. Do you have a date?
Yes. So the official date of the migration is July 22nd, 23rd, something like that. So I'll make the announcements. I'll give everybody all the details. If you're already a member, you don't have to change anything, but I will let you know what's happening. And the company that I'm working with on it does that migration for us. So very exciting things to come, I promise. But for this week, members, your recipe is for peaches and creamsicles. So these are like homemade peach creamsicle pops. They are easier than you think to make, delicious, perfectly seasonal. And then I'm also sending you an article called More Activity, Less Gym, which I feel like aligns with today's conversation in terms of being more flexible about how we fit things in when our routines are different and things like that. So that's going to be delivered to your inbox with the recipe. So if you want this recipe or the article, More Activity, Less Gym, be sure you're a member. You're going to go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries. For just $10 a month, you get weekly recipes, a monthly article or tool, extra discounts from me and our partners, plus access to live Q&A sessions. It's a total deal. I say it all the time. It's a steal when you take advantage of the full offerings because you save far more than that $10 cost. It's a no-brainer way to show yourself that your health is a priority. Plus, being a member supports this podcast and this community so we can continue to bring you new episodes and experts every single week. So remember, all you have to do is go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries, or just click the link in the episode notes because that's a lot easier. Once you're there, you click the little I agree button and then support now, enter your email and payment info, click subscribe, and you're all set. You'll get this week's recipe for the peaches and creamsicles and the article titled More Activity, Less Gym. So D, health on the road, healthy on the road, right?
Right.
It's really about how do we take our health with us when we travel, right? What does it look like to maintain ourselves and our health when we aren't necessarily in our typical routine? You know, the first question that I always think is worth asking is like, what kind of a trip is it? You know, or maybe is it a trip or is it vacation? You know, to me, it's like a work trip versus vacation.
Right.
What about you?
I agree on that too. I think like, what's the purpose of the trip? Is that it's like, and you also have to take into consideration where you're going. If, you know, once you leave the United States, it's sometimes your choices in your nutrition are just not there because it's not available in the area that you're in. And I learned that for sure in Sicily.
Yeah, say more on that.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. They eat very seasonally. And they do like hothouse stuff. So they have tomatoes and stuff year round, but they make everything fresh. Pasta, everything is fresh, made daily. And, you know, a lot of it is seafood, fresh pasta, not a lot of greens. So probably because it's conducive to that area. So they're like the version of salad is definitely tomatoes, mozzarella, basil, you know, that's a salad for them versus to me, a salad is definitely, it's got some greens in it. So that was what I found kind of interesting. I even learned that last year in Greece too. It's like our version of what Greek salad is to us is not a Greek salad to them.
Yeah. I will say I do love a salad that doesn't have any greens, you know, just tons of veggies chopped up and mixed together. But yeah, I think, you know, I love the idea of going somewhere and eating locally, right?
Yeah.
You know, like I was having this conversation with friends earlier today. You know, I can go to Italy and eat pizza and pasta and drink wine and have it not impact me at all the same way it does here because of the quality of the ingredients. So there's a piece of it where, you know, maybe one of the questions is what defines the trip for you?
Yeah.
You know, if it is exploring one of these places that you've never been, like I love experiencing the food of that place, experiencing the culture of that place.
Yeah.
You know,
that's the way I kind of looked at it for this trip because I'm extremely selective in my nutrition, not necessarily to be strict, but I struggle with animal protein more than anything. And just understanding it's like fun to experience their food life, which is totally different than what we experience as food life in the United States. We're used to like a bazillion choices on menus. And that's Paris too. That's just not the way they run. They're selective with what they're offering, but it's darn good. I'll tell you what, they're really good at pastries.
They are. So
very good at pastries.
Right. So that brings up another question of, you know, kind of before I go on a trip, I also think about, and I do this exercise with my clients, how do we want to feel on our way home? What defines this trip for you? Right? So Different from like the trips I have coming up to Greensboro, North Carolina and Dallas, Texas, where I am there for a conference. When I go on vacation with family, or even my Turks and Caicos trip coming up where I'm going with friends, right? The purpose of that trip is really to return feeling kind of refreshed, right? Versus the work trips where there's sort of an agenda for while we're there. And like understanding what defines the trip for you allows us to then say, okay, what needs to exist to have that experience, right? Is it experiencing that culture? What needs to exist? And how do I want to feel on the way home? What needs to exist for me to feel that way on the way home?
Right.
You know, like I've told this story many times of going on cruises with my family. And there would be times where I'd feel like I came back and was just, you know, I felt like I'd gained a ton of weight. A lot of it's just water. And then there were years where I said, listen, like I'm willing to accept like coming back 2 pounds up. Well, okay, that plan looks different than the plan where I'm coming back 2 pounds down or even the same. But just deciding how I wanted to feel afterwards allowed me to create a plan. And so with that plan, it probably doesn't require eating exactly the same things as you eat when you're home. It probably doesn't require an intense sweat session every day.
Right. Really weird question on that. When I talk to my clients too, I was like, you know, you're going on vacation. And if you're totally stressed out the whole time about what you're going to eat, when you're going to eat it, how you're going to eat it, where you're going to eat it, then you're really not on vacation. And so you're really not enjoying where you're at and who you're with to be present in that moment. And like you said, plan ahead. You know, if you kind of know the restaurants you're going to be at, you know, like you've said before, Jen, is like look at the menu before you kind of have an idea so you don't feel peer pressured into something that you know you don't want. And then work on letting go of that guilt. I think reframing your mind as you start on your vacation, it's like, I am not going to feel guilty for enjoying myself. And when I come back, I'm going to give myself a week of grace to get back into my regular routine.
Yeah, I love that you brought this up because now this is my theory. This is not research. This is not science. This is my own theory from, you know, everything I've learned and experienced myself and with my clients and whatever over almost 20 years of doing this. Guilt shows up when we don't keep the commitments that we make.
Ah, yes.
And more than that, it's the commitments that we make to ourselves. So the objective of thinking about the result we're looking for and reverse engineering that. So how do we want to feel on the way home? What needs to exist to feel that way on the way home? Allows us to create the plan that we are willing and able, right, to stick to. And then when there's no need or room for the guilt, it just doesn't exist, right? If the expectation that we have for ourselves is that we're going to maintain our typical routine at home when we're on the road, you're likely to feel what you were saying of stressed and frustrated. Right. Which is the point of this episode, is to say the plan we have when we're home is not the same plan that works on the road.
Yeah.
You know, however you're traveling, road, sea, plane, whatever, right? It's about what are the adjustments that we make? And then therefore, like I said in the beginning, what are the non-negotiables? So what do I mean by that, right? So Dee, you were talking about people who, you know, feel stressed about making all of those choices when they're, you know, out. One of the things too, if this is sort of your first trip of any kind, you know, vacation or work trip or whatever, since you've been focused on your health in this way, choose one thing that's going to make this experience healthier than the last one. That's it.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe it's simply focusing on water. So one of my non-negotiables is protein to start the day, some kind of movement, you know, and then keeping the main thing. So if my objective for this trip is to enjoy my friends and relax, how do I make sure that that is still at the top of those non-negotiables, right? And not the other things aren't taking away from, you know, that experience, right?
Right.
So one of the things I talk about with that, right? So going to the protein breakfast, I bring things with me. We'll talk more about this in a second, but I bring things with me so that if there's one thing that happens in the day, I got that.
Yep.
Right? Because it's one of my non-negotiables, I ensure that it will happen, regardless of what is being served at the hotel or whatever restaurant we're going to, regardless of what the plans are for the day.
Right. Makes it easier.
Right. And then, I said some kind of movement. So some days, and again, we'll talk more about this in a second, but some days that movement might be the day activity of sightseeing and walking. So this trip in the Turks, most of our day's activities are laying in the sun, right? Hanging out at the pool.
Right.
I like movement. Now, when I have gone on this trip with this group of friends or some of these people before, sometimes a few of us will get up early and walk on the beach. I'm good with that. I've also used the gym at this hotel, but some kind of movement helps me feel like me.
Yeah.
Yep. I will personally, part of why that's one of my non-negotiables is because I experience that sometimes, if I'm not moving, my body will start to ache a little bit. I don't know how else to describe it, but that's what it feels like. And so that helps me, even if I don't need it, having shakes and bars in my suitcase, helps me know that I can meet my non-negotiables.
Yeah.
And depending on the trip, sometimes sleep is a priority on that trip. Sometimes it's not,
Right.
Like these work conferences, I am often waking up earlier than I normally would because the movement is a non-negotiable for me. And
Right.
I get that in. And then sometimes I'm going to bed later than usual because there's an event or there are people that, we should be meeting with and talking to or whatever it is. So I'm really curious, Dee, for you, what would be your non-negotiables?
Well, usually my non-negotiable is with you is it is movement and, making sure where I'm staying does have a gym, but learning, so funny. We walked all over Paris and I think I saw one gym, and I wasn't 100% sure because the name of it was something about calories. And I'm like, that's got to be a gym, I think, but you didn't have windows where people could see, you could do any of that kind of stuff, but you walk everywhere. And so I didn't have that choice there.
Yep.
The one thing I did notice, which I thought was just interesting outside the United States, where it's different for you, you go on a work trip, you're to Marriott, you're to what, you probably have a gym or what, and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Outside the United States, they don't do that. Because both places I went, they walked everywhere uphill most of the time.
Yep.
And so we have a different lifestyle in the United States than we do in a lot of other countries, but usually movement's my non-negotiable because that's something I can control.
Yes. And by that token, movement does not have to require a gym. Movement does not have to require equipment.
Right. I did many squats in my room.
Yeah. And like I was saying before too, one of my other non-negotiables, especially on those kinds of trips like you just had, of experiencing their life and what it is to be there and live there or whatever, right? Their food and lifestyle is I'm going to do what they do.
Yeah.
Let's walk.
100%.
Yeah.
I learned I shouldn't drink coffee from Paris because it has some massive caffeine in it. So my non-negotiable sleep thing, that struggled with that in Paris. And I finally figured that out. I'm like, oh, it has got to be that darn coffee because it is just wiring.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and then the other seed that I want to plant for everybody is another piece to consider. When does it serve us to be flexible? And when does it serve us to stick to our routines or set boundaries? And what I mean by that is, let's say you're on vacation as a family, right? So Dee, even like your grandson.
Yeah.
You guys go on vacation with your kids and, the little guy, and your daughter-in-law says, I need to get some movement in at the beginning of the day because I know what's going to happen. And then the end of the day is going to come and I won't have gotten much movement in, or the kind of movement that makes me feel good, that makes me feel my best. And I'm going to end up frustrated. So what I need is someone to be available for 1 hour in the morning. Can we figure that out? And maybe that's your son, maybe that's you, maybe that's your husband, maybe that's hiring somebody who works at the hotel, right? But that is the idea of setting the boundaries and getting the support that we need to make something happen.
I was just going to say that requires that support from the group of the people that you're with. And they also need to know the journey that you're on. I find some of my clients, and myself included, you kind of keep it a secret of what journey you're on. I don't know why, but we do. But if you share with them, then, people are curious for one, and they're always willing to help. It's like, oh, how can I help? If it was my grandson, I'm like, well, you know what? I'll get up early, and that way I can come stay with him so that you can go do what you need to do.
Yeah. And odds are, because you also have the priority of movement, right?
Yeah.
It also, and I'm not saying that you definitely do this, but it wouldn't surprise me if you also said, I'll get up and I'll get my movement in before so that you don't have to get up that early, versus me getting my movement after and delaying all the activities of the entire family for the day.
Right.
Or it might be saying to everybody, hey, what do you guys think of starting the day's activities at noon or at 11 instead of at 9?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
To your point of us often keeping our health efforts private, I think that comes from, there's two things going through my head. One piece would be shame. There is often when we hide things, when we lie about things, right? Or we just don't share things, there's a shame component. And so is it shame that we have to put this extra effort in? I think it's becoming more mainstream that no one is surprised by that, right? Is it the fear or shame you're afraid you'll feel if you aren't quote unquote successful? Which means that you're also still living in that diet culture now called wellness culture, that there's, good, bad, on, off, end game.
Right.
Rather than this is sort of a process of becoming and ever becoming and evolving, right? And so if that's coming up, I think it's something worth exploring. I think it's worth exploring with a friend or an advisor, a coach, a therapist, or someone. And it may not be setting the boundary or having the conversation with every person on your trip.
Right.
It might be the person in your room, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you're right. I think it's around, a lot of it is shame, or, oh, I knew you were going to fall off your diet. So I think that fear of failing wherever you are in that journey, I think some people don't allow you the grace you're allowing yourself. So then it's just that snowball.
I think there's like that judgment or the expectation that if I tell them I want to get my movement in, then they're going to look at every food choice I make.
Yes.
Or something, right? Yep. And that is where I believe, from my own experience and that of my clients, when we tell people what to do to be helpful, when we say what would be helpful is you watching your grandson, what would be helpful is starting the day's activities a little bit later. What would be helpful is making sure we can get back from the day's activities in time for me to have an hour before I have to shower and get ready for dinner. Or could we push the dinner reservation so that I have a little bit of time? When we tell people what to do to be helpful, a lot of the other judgment that we're afraid of disappears. Because the intention behind that is not judgment, but to be helpful, and they just don't know how to be helpful. So their interpretation of, are you sure you want to eat that, is I'm being supportive. We feel it, right? We experience that as judgment. So if we give them something to do, if we tell them what would be helpful, it can often alleviate that.
Yeah. And not only on vacation. I think that's in what we should
100%.
probably be
Yeah,
doing all the time, and we just don't do it.
Yes. So, all right, I want to walk through the things that we bring with us, how to navigate challenges that show up, and more, right? So we'll get to all of that. Let's highlight our partner for this episode. Big thanks to Lumiere de Vie Skincare for supporting Salad with a Side of Fries. Lumiere de Vie Skincare was founded by Amber Ridinger McLaughlin in response to her own experience of mere marginal results from countless costly creams. She realized the revitalization of her youthful skin could only occur if she developed products herself. Working closely with beauty scientists and exploring the most advanced ingredients derived from the earth and sea, Amber created Lumiere de Vie, the next generation of skincare. With the highest quality natural ingredients and powerful formulas that help heal, soothe, moisturize, and protect, Lumiere de Vie acts as first aid for your skin. The result is rejuvenated, luminous, beautiful-looking skin. So no joke, my Lumiere de Vie skincare is part of my travel non-negotiables. The serums and my moisturizers are all sized so that I can bring them whether I'm carrying my suitcase on or checking my bag. And whether traveling or not, I highly recommend the Daily Brightening Broad Spectrum SPF 50. It protects and soothes the skin. It's light. It's perfect to wear under makeup. It's $62 and it's FSA, HSA eligible, which is cool. So you can use that money. All of these prices also are before your 10% off and free shipping for being a Salad with a Side of Fries listener. So simply text the word SKIN, SKIN, to 844-947-4846. You'll receive the link and coupon code right to your phone. Again, simply text the word SKIN, SKIN, to 844-947-4846. Try Lumiere de Vie Skincare, get 10% off and free shipping. This is a toll-free number. Standard text and data rates may apply. So one of the things in order for me, right, one of my non-negotiables is that protein to start my day. Right? So things that I bring with me are my Go Trim nutrition shakes, and I take the powder and I put it in Ziploc bags. So I have those. Those offer protein and fiber. So if I need a snack, those work. If I need a breakfast, right, I can have that and a piece of fruit, or I can have that and something and figure it out, but it's giving me protein and fiber. So I typically bring the equivalent of one of those for every day, just in case. I have my Tower Plus whey protein isolate with creatine shake. So I do the same thing. I put the scoop of powder in a Ziploc. I can tell, which ones are which shakes, but you can also mark them with a Sharpie. And I bring one of those for each day that I'm planning to exercise, because I use that as my post-workout shake. I take Think creamy peanut butter bars. And by the way, I have been saying this since we started the show in 2019. The only bars I eat are the Think creamy peanut butter bars. So if anybody knows anyone at Think brands, please reach out. This is a partnership made in heaven. But the Think creamy peanut butter bars I bring with me. And I also bring, you might remember, we did an episode with Catherine Arnston from a company called Energy Bits, and their algae tablets. I bring those with me when I travel because they're perfect for travel in those little packets and tablets. And then I also bring, on the supplement front, I also bring my multivitamin for every day so that I have those pieces. Whether I end up using them, right, is sort of secondary to the fact that I have them. They're a little bit of a security blanket, right? But it allows me to make sure that that protein is going to happen for me. If you're non-negotiable, or what's going to be different this time is the water, then maybe you're making sure that what you're bringing with you is maybe 2 different water bottles. Maybe one's bigger, but it's kind of heavier. So you also have one that's smaller or collapse it, right? What are the things that we need to do to make sure that we're going to hit the thing that is our non-negotiable?
Right.
What do you bring with you, Dee?
Well, I wear my tennis shoes because those are non-negotiable.
Yep.
So I always wear them. It's interesting. I was talking to somebody else about that, and I said something about my tennis shoes, and she goes, "Oh, they just take up too much room. I just don't take them." I go, "You wear them."
Right.
You wear them on the plane, and then they don't take any room at all. So that's definitely non-negotiable. Food-wise, I'm with you. I try to take my version of the protein that I like to use with me. Now, I did not take that outside the country because I was like, I'm not sure what those guys are going to do to my stuff that's in a baggie in other countries. So in the United States, I'm okay with doing that. And I didn't want to get stopped in these foreign countries and then be questioned for 3 hours.
I will tell you, knock on wood, I haven't had issues.
Oh, that's awesome. That's good to know. Yeah, that's good to know. But, I took some fruit, I took some other stuff like that, and then made sure that I ate it before I got into that country. So that's what I had on the plane. I was available on the plane instead of eating plain food. I made sure that I arrived at the airport enough time to actually eat a meal or a true meal before, because it was going to be a long flight.
Yeah, I'm going to come back to airports and the airplane in a second. What else are you packing?
What else am I packing? I'm with you. I like to pack some nuts. Mm-hmm. So there's a certain almond that I really like. So I pack some of those. I'm with you. The bars that I like. I'm going to have to try the Think peanut butter ones, though. I've not tried those. I'll have to try those.
Yeah.
So I do take those. And those are probably about it, depending on where I'm going. Something that doesn't melt. Try to, because sometimes it gets hot.
Especially in the summer.
Bag. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It'll melt in your bag. But yeah, just basically that. Try and make your own version of nuts and whatever, so that you have a little bit of something to curb that appetite if you have it.
Yes.
For sure.
Totally. And then you were talking about the sneakers. So I will admit, I sometimes wear fashion sneakers, but my workout sneakers are in that suitcase. And so I'm also making sure that I have clothes to work out in packed. Now, this is where we must know thyself. So if you are the kind of person who wants to pack for the optimal scenario and then will be frustrated that you are bringing things home you didn't wear, don't pack that many, right? Choose how many sets of workout clothes you're bringing based on your plan. So if your plan is to move twice while you're there, bring 2 sets. Does that make sense?
Oh, yes.
Because I think so many of us can get stuck on, okay, if I do the hotel gym 3 times, that'll be awesome. We bring enough workout clothes to work out every single day. And then we go, I can't believe I only wore 3 of those. But 3 was the plan.
3 was the plan. Yeah.
This was years and years ago. I went with a friend to Dominican Republic for a weekend. And she brought, I think, 1 set of workout clothes and washed them in the sink and laid them to dry after she wore them. And I was like, good for you. That's impressive. I don't trust my cleaning skills, to be honest. So that's not my approach. But you. So think about how many sets you're going to bring, right? I also think about what I'm going to do for my exercise. So some days it might be, or my movement, right? So some days it might be the walking and the sightseeing and the activity. If it's the hotel gym, right? Do I have the shoes that I need when I go down, to go there? What time of day is it going to happen? Am I doing something outside versus inside, right? Am I going to use a video that's no props, right? Do I have no prop options? What happens if I get to the hotel gym and the only weights they have are the big machines? They don't even have dumbbells that I could do something that I wanted to do with them.
Right.
So thinking through some of that. And I've now started to travel with my own mini bands, the small circular bands. So I travel with those because they weigh nothing.
Right.
And it gives me something that will feel more like what I'm looking for if I want that workout that feels like home. I also have an exercise ball that's small, like a playground ball kind of ball, that I travel with. And I blow it up and I keep the straw and I deflate it and pack it. And but there are a couple things that change my workout for me when I'm on the road and that help me feel like I'm getting what I'm looking for. And so I take care of myself in that way. I just bring them with me. Sometimes I don't end up using them because I didn't need it, but I had them Just like my shakes and my bars are like that security blanket, I have these options. I have the backup plan.
Right.
My mom taught me, don't pack what you can't carry. So I feel like as long as I am willing and can lift my own suitcase, I can do whatever I need to do. Right?
Exactly
I can put whatever I want in it. And so for that too, I also make sure that I have clothes that I'm going to feel great in on day 1 and day 10, 12, 14, however long this trip is. Sometimes I think we pack for feeling our best without realizing that sometimes when we're traveling, we are out of our routine. We may end up dehydrated. We may end up not eliminating as often as when we're home,
Right.
So I make sure that I have clothing options that no matter how I'm feeling, right, day 1, day 10, whatever it is, that I'm going to feel great in what I'm wearing.
Yeah. Well, and who says what you had planned for day 3 is what you really feel like wearing on day 3 when you get there?
Totally.
And the weather's changed, and then you have you got to have choices. Choices are great,
right? All the overpackers
if you're willing,
unite. Right.
Yes, if you're willing to carry it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so by that token too, I also have a little bag of things for the just in case. So I bring my Tower Plus electrolytes. I bring digestive enzymes, right? If I'm not eliminating, if I'm feeling kind of bloated, especially after a flight, if things aren't moving, I bring, especially this time of year, I'm bringing aloe gel for my potential / inevitable sunburn, right? Yep.
Yeah.
I also have my little just in case thing. I will bring extra packets of my vitamins if I feel like I'm coming down with something, or some extra things just in case. Before you were talking about the airport.
Yes.
So I bring a bar, right? My Think creamy peanut butter bar. Sometimes I'll bring, depends what I have at home, if I have anything at home, like an apple or something that's usually easier. I have also put berries in a Ziploc.
Yeah, they get squished.
They do, but grab a spoon. Where there's a will, there's a way.
Of course.
I will bring walnuts and almonds. And then at the airport, I always buy a bottle of water and make sure that I've, something just in case. There are certain places these days at the airport where I can get a great egg breakfast or great salad or, things if I need more or whatever. We also have a nutrition nugget called Airports for, some more hacks, tips, and tricks on navigating airports. But I think, they have so many more options than they used to have. So,
Yes. And Starbucks is everywhere because you did a nutrition nugget, I think, on Starbucks.
Yes.
Starbucks is everywhere. You can do it. Yeah. Yeah.
I want to say it was actually even a full episode on Starbucks.
It might have been. Yeah.
Yeah. Because they have a lot.
I will say, though, sometimes even the Starbucks out in different countries, though, don't have exactly, but they have something that's similar that you can figure out. Yeah. It's like, okay, that'll work. That'll work.
Yeah. And befriending people who work somewhere and say, hey, if I'm looking for something like this, where would I go?
Yeah.
Right? If I want a salad that is tons of greens, where would I find that? And people are unbelievably helpful. I think all in on all of this, right? Number 1 is flexibility, right? Even though we have these non-negotiables, it's flexibility, right? So with food, if I get my protein at breakfast and then just see how the day goes, right? I make an effort to get veggies, protein and fiber, always my plan, and I do what I can, I'm also a big fan of tasting things and experiencing the food like we talked about wherever we are. So considering for yourself, what is that non-negotiable? And for the rest, let it go.
Yeah. I think that right there, Jen, is one of the hardest things I think it's one of the hardest things for us to accept is to let it go.
Yes.
This is a short period of the rest of our life and we can get right back on when we get back.
Right. And it's recognizing, to your point before of the guilt, create the plan, stick to the plan. If the alcohol wasn't part of the plan, meaning limiting the alcohol wasn't part of the plan, then why are we adding worry about the alcohol? That wasn't part of the plan, right? If I feel like drinking, cool. If I don't, cool.
Yeah.
Right? I don't even obsess so much, depending on the trip. Like, I don't really obsess so much about my water when I'm away. Like, I'll get thirsty, especially if I'm, in the sun and whatever. It kind of, for a while, it became a running joke at dinner on a cruise where like I would drink everybody's water because they wouldn't refill my water fast enough.
You're right.
But it just happened. It wasn't part of my plan. It wasn't part of the focus, And like I was saying before, sleep is not really, depending on the trip, it may not be top of my non-negotiables. If it is top of your non-negotiables, then make sure you have what you need to sleep well. Do you need an eye mask? Do you need a sound machine? Do you need your own pillow?
Don't drink their coffee.
Right. Don't drink their coffee.
Don't drink their coffee.
And then, Dee, you were talking about some of the obstacles that show up, right? That the veggie availability, was sort of shifting your expectations.
Yeah. And I was okay with that. I really seriously, I thought, I'm really going to, once you get there, I have learned not to stress about food because I typically can find something to eat. It may not be my first choice, but there is something that I can do and not feel guilt. I'm working really hard on not making myself feel guilty about it anymore. And tomorrow I'll do better. Not necessarily better, but tomorrow I'll do different with what I'm faced with tomorrow.
Yeah. By that token too, and you were mentioning restaurants and menus. We have an episode called Menu Mayhem where a bunch of you guys sent me menus from restaurants and we went through them. And like you said, I can always find something. Practice that. Protein, fiber, exist somewhere and experience their food. You know? The last thing I just want to point out is travel can also be a stressor. And meaning, right, we're out of our normal routine. We're maybe up for different hours, all of those things. Like it's not our typical. And so that can put extra stress on our system. Consider the things that you can do. Make an effort to not add to that stress. Bring the things that support you. Is it the extra support for your immune system? Is it the extra sleep? Whatever it is, right? But thinking about supporting your system. A lot of times we're really stressed and then we go on vacation and we get sick.
Yeah.
Plan for it if that's likely, right? If you've been so stressed out leading up to something, plan to take care of yourself, nourish yourself, and we can keep practicing each time we're traveling for whatever it is, whether it's a work trip, with friends, with family, a road trip versus an airplane versus out of the country versus a train, right? All of these different experiences offer different insights and different practices. And we have a nutrition nugget on jet lag too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Start off with the positive attitude. I'm going on vacation. Everything's going to be great. You start with that positive attitude at the very beginning. And then I think you can come back with that positive attitude too. That helps with all of those things that we just talked about, the guilt, the shame, all of that. Just like have a positive attitude about all of it.
Yes.
Think of the adventures of life, of what you get to experience.
Exactly. I love that. Is that your wrap up final thought?
That is my wrap up final.
I think my wrap up final thought is very similar. I think traveling is a profound practice of living in the gray area between the black and white. What does that look like for you? How do we find the pieces that are not on, off, good, bad, all or nothing, just simply choices, and living in the gray area and experiencing that and playing with it? And, what does that lifestyle look and feel like? Maybe there's more of that we want to incorporate when we're home rather than attempting to take more of home on the road.
Agree with that.
Food for thought. All right. Now we are going to preview our nutrition nugget. So this week on Friday in our bite-sized bonus episode, Nutrition Nugget, it's all about Pro-Dough whey protein powder. So this one was submitted by Jennifer S. Thank you, thank you. So she likes the apple pie flavor. So we're going to dig into that one as we do. Jennifer S., thank you again for sending this one in. Be sure to come back on Friday for this week's bite-sized bonus episode to find out all the details of this protein powder. I'm honestly intrigued by the flavor itself and the name. So be sure, click the plus sign or the follow button wherever you're listening, and then your app will alert you when it is live on Friday morning. Well, as always, everybody, I'm your host, Jenn Trepeck. Connect with me on Instagram or all social media. I'm at Jenn Trepeck, JENNTREPECK. Website is asaladwithasideofries.com. Pick your platform, send a message. I love hearing from you. I truly do. This is also the easiest way to learn more about working with me as your health coach. Dee, thank you again for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me, Jen. This is an awesome topic.
Yes. Awesome. And of course, everybody, if you are not already, join our membership by going to glow.fm/saladwithasideofries. This shows your support for this podcast, this community, and your health. You'll get this week's recipe for the peaches and creamsicles and the article titled More Activity, Less Gym. Remember, changes are coming to the membership, so you might want to jump in now. More to come on that. But until next week, before your next travel, whether for work or pleasure, a weekend or a week plus, consider how you want to feel on your way home. Consider what you need to do or bring with you to make that happen. And then enjoy living in the gray area, truly living your life. Well, friends, that's it for today's episode of Salad with a Side of Fries. Congratulations for making yourself and your health a priority. Thanks so much for joining us. Be sure to click subscribe or follow on your favorite podcast platform. Share us with a friend, and we'll be back next week. Always remember, you deserve it, and you are worth it. Happy healthy.